What if I told you that rock's greatest anthem almost never existed?
There's a lady shoe.
March 5th, 1971. Ulster Hall, Belfast. 4,000 fans pack a dingy club, expecting to hear the hits. Instead, Led Zeppelin unleashes something nobody's ever heard before. 8 minutes of pure ambition. The crowd shifts uncomfortably. Some head for the exits. They had no idea they were witnessing history.
Somebody. And you see, so I said to Robert, could I play?
But hidden inside that performance, buried in the very fabric of the recording, was a secret. A mistake so small, so perfectly timed, that it would become part of rock mythology. A single moment, 5 minutes, 35 seconds, one tiny slip of magnetic tape that should have been fixed, but wasn't. The question is, did that mistake make Stairway to Heaven legendary, or was it already destined for greatness? December 1970, London's Island Studios. Jimmy Page has a problem. The clock is ticking. Studio time costs money, serious money. And Page has this idea brewing in his head, something ambitious, something that breaks every rule about how rock songs are supposed to work. But cramped schedules and hourly rates are killing creativity. Every minute costs pounds. Every take costs more pounds. The pressure is suffocating inspiration. So Page makes a radical decision. He's going to abandon the studio system entirely. Early 1971, a convoy of musicians and equipment trucks winds through the English countryside toward Hampshire. Their destination? Headley Grange, a crumbling Victorian poorhouse that's been abandoned for decades.
And there's 3 numbers off it that we wanted to feature on video.
Picture this: broken windows, leaky roof, springs sticking out of rotting couches, no heating, no proper kitchen, certainly no gold records on the walls. But Page sees something else. He sees freedom. The Rolling Stones' mobile recording truck parks outside like a spaceship that's landed in the wrong century. Cables snake through shattered window frames. The building's massive drawing room, cold stone walls, crackling fireplace, becomes their tracking space. This is where engineer Andy Johns will capture magic, or watch it all fall apart. No schedules, no studio clocks. If John Bonham wants to bash his drums at 3 in the morning, he can. If Robert Plant gets inspired in the middle of dinner, they roll tape. If Jimmy Page wants to sit by the fire and work out chord progressions until dawn, that's exactly what happens. And that's when it begins. One night, Page is hunched over his acoustic guitar by the hearth. Same chord sequence he's been obsessing over for weeks. Gentle opening, building energy, then explosion. An 8-minute journey that defies every 3-minute radio format in existence. But it's just chords, no words, no story. Robert Plant walks into the room, pencil and paper in hand. Page starts playing, and something clicks. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold. Plant later said the words seemed to write themselves, like the song was already complete, waiting for them to discover it. The acoustic roadmap was set, the mystical verses locked in place. But they had no idea what they were really creating. Here's what most people don't understand about recording in 1971. Every edit was surgery. No computers, no digital files, no undo button. Just 2-inch magnetic tape, razor blades, and steady hands. When you wanted to join 2 pieces of audio, you physically cut the tape at an angle, a feather cut, and stuck the pieces together with 1/2-inch sticky tape. 16 tracks of audio had to line up perfectly. Even the thickness of the repair tape could throw off the timing. One wrong cut and you destroyed the entire take. This is the world where Stairway to Heaven was being assembled, piece by piece, cut by cut. The basic tracks were done. The overdubs were layered in back at Island Studios. Recorders, electric 12-string, Bonham's thunderous drums. But the centerpiece, the guitar solo that would define rock music for generations, was still missing. Page sets aside his famous Les Paul. Instead, he reaches for a battered 1959 Fender Telecaster, a gift from Jeff Beck during their Yardbirds days. Battle-scarred, road-worn, perfect. He plugs it into a small Supro combo amp, the same rig he'd used on Zeppelin's debut album. Engineer Andy Johns cranks the volume, positions a single microphone inches from the speaker. Page records 3 complete improvised takes, back to back, each one wilder than the last. After playback, he chooses the middle pass, raw, on the edge, no pedals, no double tracking. As Page later described it, it felt like it was playing itself. But there was a problem. The entry into the solo needed work. The transition from the building section wasn't quite right, so they made a surgical edit. They lifted a single bar from one of the rejected takes and spliced it onto the chosen performance. One cut, one join, one tiny piece of sticky tape holding rock history together. Andy Johns made the edit with a razor blade on a splicing block. The angle was perfect. The timing was exact. But tape is a living thing. It expands. It contracts. It shifts under tension. And somewhere in the process of threading that massive reel through the machine, something moved. Just a hair, a fraction of a frame, imperceptible to the naked eye. But it was there. 5 minutes, 35 seconds. That's where it lives. Right as Jimmy Page slams into the first big distorted D chord of the solo, the track lurches. A half-beat bump that sounds like the song stumbling for just an instant before catching itself. For 30 years, most listeners thought it was intentional swagger, extra attitude, the confidence of rock gods who could bend time itself. But in audio engineering forums, a different story was emerging. Veterans who had worked with tape recognized the signature, the specific way the beat shifted, the particular quality of the stumble. They'd heard it before, in countless sessions across countless studios. It was a slipped splice. The tiny piece of tape holding the solo's entry together had shifted. Not much, maybe a few milliseconds, but enough to create that characteristic lurch. The engineers had a saying, once you notice it, you'll never unhear it. They were right. Play Stairway to Heaven for someone who's never heard about the splice. They won't notice anything. Play it for them again after explaining what to listen for, and suddenly it's all they can hear. That tiny imperfection becomes impossible to ignore. But here's the fascinating part. Andy Johns knew it was there. He could have fixed it. In 1971, they had the technology. They had the time. They could have made another cut, realigned the tape, eliminated the bump entirely. Johns made a choice. He left it in. Why? Because the rest of the performance was perfect. The solo had captured something magical, raw, improvised, alive. Page's guitar work felt like it was being invented in real time. The energy was electric. To fix the splice meant risking all of that. It meant potentially destroying the very thing that made the take special. So Johns chose the human moment over technical perfection. He chose the flaw. Atlantic Records never released Stairway to Heaven as a single in America. Too long, too weird, too risky. They had no idea what they were sitting on.
Yes, there are troopers who can go by, but in the long run.
FM radio DJs embraced the 8-minute epic. By 1973, It was the most requested song on American radio. Rock stations discovered they could thrive without 3-minute singles. The song's stature grew. Awards followed. In April 2023, the Library of Congress added the master tape to the National Recording Registry as an audio treasure worthy of preservation for all time. But fame brought scrutiny. Lawsuits emerged. Claims of plagiarism. 6 years of court battles over whether the opening chords had been stolen from another song. The U.S. Supreme Court finally ended the controversy in 2020, clearing Led Zeppelin completely. Through it all, that tiny splice remained, hidden in plain sight, a secret handshake among audio engineers and obsessive fans. Guitar stores started posting signs. No Stairway to Heaven. The riff had become the most overplayed piece of music in instrument shops worldwide. Wayne's World turned the prohibition into a cultural punchline with their "No Stairway Denied" gag. Even a ban became free advertising. But something deeper was happening. In an age of digital perfection, where every imperfection can be erased with software, listeners began craving the warmth of analog flaws. Music blogs celebrated the beauty of imperfection. Audio forums shared Easter eggs, moments where humanity showed through the technical facade. Bonham's squeaky bass drum pedal in "Since I've Been Loving You." Page's whispered count-in on "Black Dog." These weren't mistakes to be ashamed of. They were proof that real people had been in the room, playing together, creating something larger than themselves. The splice that Andy Johns had been reluctant to fix became a badge of honor, evidence that the greatest rock anthem of all time hadn't been manufactured in a laboratory. It had been born from human hands, razor blades, and a little bit of luck. Today, you can scrub every imperfection from a recording, auto-tune every vocal, quantize every drum hit, create music that sounds technically flawless. But Stairway to Heaven endures precisely because it isn't flawless. That tiny tape splice, the mistake that Andy Johns chose not to fix, reminds us that perfection isn't always the goal. Sometimes the flaw is what makes something human. Sometimes the slip is what makes it legendary. So the next time you hear Stairway to Heaven, listen for that moment at 5 minutes, 35 seconds. That split-second stumble before the solo takes flight. It's not a mistake. It's proof that even rock gods bleed. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what makes them immortal. In an age where we can fix every imperfection, are we losing the very thing that makes music human? If this story changed how you hear Stairway to Heaven, share the episode, hit subscribe, and join us next time as we uncover another hidden moment that changed music forever.